I never thought this would happen to me. It feels like something out of a movie. I'm just now finding the courage to talk about it. A while ago, I went through an experience that I still haven't fully processed. I decided to share it because sometimes letting go of what's on your mind gives you some peace. It all started when I got on Tinder. I didn't have high hopes for online dating, but I was surprised when this girl, I'll call her Anna, paid attention to me almost right away. I remember the day I saw her profile. Her photo was attractive, but it was her description that really got me. She said she loved movies, was a fan of series marathons, and worked in finance just like me. She kept things a bit mysterious, and I liked that. We started chatting, and from the start, she seemed really into me. To be honest, she flattered me a lot. I wasn't used to feeling so good about myself so quickly. First, everything felt normal. We talked about our favorite movies and what we did during the day. She kept saying she wanted to meet me in person, and I thought it was nice that she was so direct. Our first meeting was at a cafe near my place. I got there early, and for a moment I thought she wasn't going to show. But then she walked in and greeted me. In person, she looked even better than in her photo. One thing I noticed right away was that she wasn't surprised by anything I said. She talked about my career, my projects, and everything seemed very normal to her. At that moment, I didn't think much of it. I just figured she wasn't easily impressed. As the days went by, she started calling me a lot. Not just texts, but voice calls at any time. If I didn't answer, she'd ask who I'd been with and what I'd been doing. She had this intense tone, but since I was excited at first, I just thought it was her way of showing interest. A few days after we met, we started going on more dates. She was very affectionate, but she kept asking about my schedule and daily routines. I liked the attention, and I didn't see any reason to worry. After a month, we became a couple. The funny thing is, she was the one who said she loved me first. She said she couldn't stand the idea of me being with someone else. That way of expressing herself so quickly surprised me, but it also made me feel special. I hadn't been in a serious relationship for a while, so I thought it was worth a try. One day, she invited me to stay over at her place to watch movies and celebrate our 2-month anniversary. We spent the afternoon talking and cooking. Everything was calm. At night, we put a couple of movies on her TV. I chose the first one, she chose the second, and then she said, "There's one more movie I want to show you. It's very special." I naively thought it was some new release we hadn't seen. When it started playing, I realized it wasn't a movie at all. It was an edited video with scenes recorded on her phone. It took me a few seconds to understand that the protagonist of the video was me. There were clips of me entering and leaving my apartment, footage of my way to university, and even moments when I arrived home at night. It was clear that someone had been following me systematically. I was speechless. I looked at her, and she had this weird smile. She wasn't laughing, but she was proud to show me that. During the video, I felt a strange fear, like it finally hit me that nothing had been a coincidence. When it ended, Anna confessed that she actually knew me from before. She worked in the same building as me in another company, but I had never noticed her. She said she fell in love with me the first day she saw me and started following me, looking for ways to interact with me, keeping track of everything I did. She even mentioned that she found me on Tinder because she wanted a chance to get closer to me. I pretended everything was okay, but my hands were shaking and my stomach was turning. I said something like, "Wow, you really tried hard." While inside, I was thinking I needed to get out of there. I didn't want to make a scene, so I waited for her to fall asleep. The next day, I got up and made up an excuse to go home early. She gave me a kiss, like nothing had happened. When I got home, I locked myself in my room and started thinking about the best way to end things with her without provoking a violent reaction. In the end, my fear won, and I called her to tell her I couldn't continue the relationship. I told her I was uncomfortable with what I had seen and that I needed space. She was very offended and repeated several times that she wouldn't hurt me, that everything she did was out of love. But I was determined. I couldn't stay with someone who spied on me like that. The problem started a few days later. I thought the breakup would be enough, but it turned out Anna still worked in the same building, even though she was from another company. She started showing up at my office. The first time, I thought she wanted to talk civilly, but she started yelling that I had betrayed her, that I had gotten her excited and then left her. I tried to calm her down, but her eyes had this anger that made me tremble. From that day on, she became even more noticeable. She would send me messages at all hours. Sometimes they were loving words saying she loved me and that we should get back together. Other times they were strange threats, warning me that she would always be behind me, that I belonged to her. It was like her mood changed in a matter of minutes, going from "I love you" to "you're not going to escape from me." At work, my coworkers noticed I was nervous. I started receiving notes on my desk with no sender, but they were signed with a heart and her initials. Sometimes they were simple messages like, "Don't forget about me." But other times, they said things that made me very nervous, like, "I'm watching you." I told a friend what was happening, but I was ashamed. I felt like if it were the other way around, if I were the one harassing a girl, everyone would see it as something very serious. But in my case, some people told me I should feel flattered. That caused me more fear and stress because I knew it wasn't harmless. One afternoon, after weeks of nonstop harassment, she sent me the last message. "I'm tired of you rejecting me, but don't always trust that I'll hear from you." That phrase made me more nervous than I already was, but I also felt a strange relief because after that message, she stopped bothering me with calls or gifts. I thought maybe she got bored or found someone else to obsess over. Over time, things calmed down. I managed to change jobs after a few months, and that helped me breathe easier. I haven't heard from her again, not even through social media. I never investigated if she was still in that building. Every time I tell people about it, they're surprised that a woman could harass me like that. I also had the idea that usually the harasser is the man, but I realized there are no fixed rules. Anyone can become obsessed. I still wonder how things got out of control so quickly when it all started with something as simple as a match on Tinder. In the end, I was left with the lesson that you never know who you're dealing with. My advice to anyone who listens to this is to pay attention to the signs. When someone gets too intense and asks for details about your life almost daily, it's a good idea to distance yourself. Better to prevent than to end up living something like what happened to me. I won't deny that at first I liked the tension, but today I wouldn't do it again. If you're enjoying the video, please subscribe to the channel for future videos, and like and share with your friends. Hi, I'm here to tell you something different. I had a series of very strange dates with a guy I met on Facebook. I was looking for company, and his profile picture caught my attention. The first thing I noticed was that he had altars and candles in his photos. It seemed like he believed a lot in Santa Muerte. I didn't care much. I just wanted to go out with someone who was a good person. We started talking, and he seemed respectful. He had an attractive appearance and told me he liked to protect those he loved. I didn't think too much about it and agreed to meet in person for our first date. I realized quickly that he was very particular about his rituals. He always dressed in black and wore amulets around his neck. He mentioned that these objects helped him cleanse himself of bad energies. I didn't feel uncomfortable at that moment. Rather, I was curious, so I went along with it. The second time we went out, he showed me some photographs of his altar at home and explained that he made offerings to Santa Muerte almost every night. He said that thanks to it, he felt stronger and could protect those who were close to him. He had a strange confidence, and I found it even interesting. During the dates, I noticed that apart from his spiritual themes, he didn't talk much about his daily life. He answered evasively when I asked him about his family or his work. He preferred to tell me about candles, herbs, or rituals. Although it sounded strange to me, I thought that each person has their beliefs, and as long as it didn't hurt me, I didn't see why I should judge him. However, as the days went by, his attitudes began to become more intense. Suddenly, he would send me messages in the middle of the night, saying that he was working on a spell so that we would be closer. It missed me, but he kept me expectant. I had the hope that it was just a phase and that after that, he would relax. One afternoon, we met in a little crowded park. That's where I felt that something was no longer right. He took a small black candle out of his backpack and lit it in front of me, in a public space, as if it were the most normal thing. He began to murmur prayers to Santa Muerte. The truth is, I got a little scared. Then, he pricked his finger with a pin he took out and let a drop of blood fall on the flame. It was obvious that he was doing some kind of ritual. He mentioned that this way we were going to join forever, that there was no turning back. At that moment, he wanted me to repeat the same thing. He offered me the pin and insisted that I follow in his footsteps. I felt a chill, and it was clear to me that I didn't want to do that. I backed away. I really couldn't conceive the idea of involving my blood in something that I didn't know about. I let go of his hand and walked away a few steps. His reaction was immediate. He began to say that he couldn't break that pact and that if I refused, the consequences would be serious. I don't use those exact words, but you get the idea. My instinct screamed at me to get out of there. I got up, apologized, and left. That same night, already at my house, I tried to relax, thinking that maybe I had exaggerated. I looked for distraction with music and series and tried not to dwell on the matter. I slept uncomfortably, and at dawn, I found 3 lit candles at the entrance of my house. They were the same type that he had used in the park. I took the candles that were already out and melted and threw them in the trash, and I preferred not to give it another thought. However, I was left with the feeling that something strange was happening. A few days later, I began to hear noises in the house. At first, I thought it was my imagination, but the sounds were repeated every night, like footsteps or distant knocks. Sometimes, I swore they were coming from my room, especially near the bed. One time, I had barely turned off the light when I heard 3 very clear knocks coming from downstairs, where I have some boxes stored. I couldn't dare look out. Fear paralyzed me. My heart raced, and I tried to convince myself that it was just something loose that had fallen. But it was impossible not to remember those candles and the strange ritual in the park. As the week went by, the tension increased. Many times, I felt cold currents in my room and a feeling that someone was watching me, even when I was alone. I also noticed that my cell phone turned off by itself at night, as if it had suddenly discharged, even if it had enough battery. That made me feel very vulnerable. I even started sleeping with the light on, something I had never done before. And one of those nights, when I woke up, I realized that the light was off. Someone had turned off the light. The boy stopped looking for me. He didn't write or call anything again. On one hand, I felt relief because I didn't want any more encounters with him. But on the other, I didn't understand why he had left everything so abruptly, right after threatening me that I should not break our supposed pact. I imagined him in his house, surrounded by images and candles, saying some strange prayer. It was hard for me to accept that someone who seemed so normal at first could do such macabre things. Several friends told me to block his contact and not to be alone at night, but I had no choice. At that moment, I didn't hear from him again, and I prefer not to look for him. Some people have recommended that I look for someone who knows how to clean energies or burn some special herb, but I haven't taken the step. I'm still afraid that by trying to get rid of this, I will make it worse. Without wanting to, you should have asked for help from another witch to get out of this problem. Hello. I'm going to share a story sent by someone we'll call Christina because she wants to stay anonymous. All in all, she was in her 2nd semester at the university. She still didn't get used to it. She went to the wrong classroom and didn't know her teachers well. In one of these classes, she ran into a guy. She saw him sitting in the back of the classroom, very far away from everyone. Immediately, the difference was noticeable. While the others were chatting and sharing experiences, he was sitting there, looking at his phone, not paying attention to anyone else. His name is Daniel, and she realized that she had seen him before in the hallways. He was always alone with his headphones on, and he had this kind of weird vibe that pushed other people away. In fact, so much so that people whispered behind his back that he was a weirdo. Not only because he didn't interact with others, but because he liked gore, that genre of horror movies that focuses on violence, blood, and guts coming out everywhere. But this didn't affect her. Christina wasn't one to get carried away by gossip or prejudices towards someone. So, because of life's twists and turns, one day while she was looking for a book in the library, she ran into this guy. What better place for someone like him than a library, where no one else is going to bother him? She ran into him and decided to talk to him for the first time. She started the conversation with the excuse that they were both in the same class and he wanted a book for an assignment that they were given. He didn't pay attention to who could be talking to him at first. No one at school paid attention to him, much less was he going to pay attention to a girl. But out of the corner of his eye, Daniel noticed that she was still standing there. He turned to look at her and realized that she was talking to him. Christina didn't know what to expect from this interaction, but it was a huge surprise to realize that Daniel was actually cool. He had a kind of awkward laugh, but it seemed sincere, and he made her laugh even with a silly comment about the literature teacher. It didn't take long for her to realize that, despite the rumors, there was something special about him. Something caught her attention, and physically he wasn't bad either. He wasn't a typical heartthrob that everyone chases, but he had something. Maybe it was his dark eyes, his messy hair, or that worn denim jacket that looked so good on him. There was something about Daniel that attracted her, even though she didn't really know what. Little by little, they began to talk more frequently. They sat together in class, he helped her with notes, and over time, she realized that the rumors were pure made-up things. Things that people imagine because of how someone looks. Yes, he liked gore, and that's true, but he wasn't even close to the psychopath that everyone painted him to be. In fact, Christina would even say he was the opposite. The boy was kind, although sometimes shy. On one occasion, Daniel confessed that he liked to draw and showed her some doodles he had in his notebook. They were dark drawings with skulls and blood, but with a style very much like him. Again, Christina had no idea what was going on in his heart, but she started to really like him. Despite everything, this made her laugh. He listened to her when she told him her dramas and even offered her some of his own food and water when she forgot to bring some. She thought, how cool. Finally, a different guy that doesn't mess around with the same old nonsense. She genuinely believed that Daniel was a good catch. One day, after class, he suggested, hey, do you feel like going for coffee tomorrow? There's a place near the university that's cool. We could go. Given their history, she accepted, of course. She went home, got ready, did her makeup, put on her clothes, and when she was ready, she went to the cafe. When she arrived, she saw that at a very secluded table, because Daniel still had that lonely essence. He was sitting there with a black backpack leaning on the chair next to him. He greeted her with that nervous smile of his, and they started talking. Everything seemed perfect. He started telling her anecdotes from his childhood. Like that time he fell off his bike and scraped his whole face. Instead of being scared or crying, he said he liked the sensation of the burning and the blood gushing out drop by drop down his face. On the other hand, she was much more innocent. She simply confessed how clumsy she was at dancing. They were laughing together, having a really good time. She felt a real chemistry between the two. During this talk, there were a couple of times when Daniel grabbed his backpack and put his hand in to look for things. A pen, a paper, whatever. The point is that while he was handling his backpack, you could hear something. It was like metal, like sheets of metal colliding with each other. Every time he moved the chair, you could hear this little sound, click, 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 as if they were keys or something like that. At first, she didn't pay attention to it, but the more they talked, the more she noticed it. Her brain became more focused on this idea. What did he have in there? When they had gained some trust, she asked him, hey, what do you have there? It sounds like you have a whole workshop. He looked at her and laughed, but it was a different laugh. It was like a dry laugh. He looked her straight in the eyes and said, I thought you were never going to ask me. I really wanted to show you that. That's when she understood that all these movements, this sound that he practically made on purpose, was to get Christina's attention. He wanted her to ask him what he had in the backpack. He asked her, what do you think I have in here? And she, with a smile because she wasn't thinking anything bad, said to him, let's see, surprise me. Then Daniel got up, took a couple of steps towards the chair, and lifted the backpack. He took it, turned around, and sat down again. He grabbed the zipper and began to run it very slowly, as if he wanted to add a little tension to the matter. Christina was expecting anything, books, a laptop, something normal, but it wasn't like that. Instead of taking out what he had in the backpack, he simply opened it wide open so Christina could see what was in there. And the moment she laid eyes on the inside, Her breath went out. They were knives, not one or two, but a lot, easily about 15 knives in there. They were all kinds, big, small, medium, closed, some with wooden handles, others more modern, like kitchen knives for the rich. She, despite seeing that for only a few seconds, noticed a very disturbing detail. Some of those knives had dark stains. It wasn't rust because the knives looked pretty good. This looked more like dried blood. She stared inside, having no idea what to say. Then she hears Daniel's voice. Daniel's voice brings her out of her reverie. "Do you like them?" he asks her. She looks back at Daniel and sees that he has very big eyes. He has that look of surprise and expectation. He wants her to be as excited as he is. But what she doesn't know is that the girl, far from being fascinated with the discovery, is terrified. And there was something in Daniel's smile she noticed immediately. It wasn't a happy smile. It wasn't that smile that she had seen so much in him. This smile looked cold, strange, disturbing. She didn't know what to do. Her instinct, a voice behind her, was yelling at her, "Run!" But she found herself paralyzed. In the end, she manages to take control of her body once more and simply gathers the strength she has. She smiles and says, "Yes, they are cool." But inside, she wanted to scream so much. It was her fear that she wanted to ask for help right there in the cafe. Again, that little voice behind her was yelling at her that there was danger. So she works up her courage and adds, "Hey, sorry, I have to go. I forgot something at home." She didn't even wait for Daniel to say something. She stood up so fast she almost knocked over her chair. He just took off his fake smile and nodded, "Yes, of course." And with one jerk, he closed his backpack and zipped it again, as if he had suddenly realized that he had made a huge mistake. Christina left the cafe, not caring who paid the bill. She just wanted to run away. Her heart was in her throat. She walked quickly and turned around for fear that Daniel was following her. She got home, locked the door, turned the lock, and sat for a while in the living room. She tried to process what had just happened, those knives, the stains, the look. Everything was on her mind over and over again. That same night, Christina blocked Daniel from everywhere. She blocked him on WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere. She didn't want to have anything to do with him. The next day, she went to school because, despite all that, she had to keep studying. She walked into the classroom and saw Daniel there, back waiting for her, hoping he would sit next to her like always. But she just walked away and sat with another friend who had told her everything that had happened. And she sheltered her. Obviously, she wasn't going to leave her alone with someone like him. As the weeks went by, she stopped thinking so much about the incident, and the fact that Daniel didn't look for her or send her messages helped her forget about all this. Some time later, because one day she was at home talking with her friend through messages. They had a very interesting conversation, telling each other gossip and things that interested both of them. At those moments, they both answered each other within seconds. They didn't let minutes or hours go by, no seconds. But suddenly, the friend stops answering. Christina is surprised, but well, maybe she got busy. For a long time later, she receives a message. It was her friend. "Hey, Christina, what do you think? I just found out something." This friend had just found out that same day that Daniel had gotten a girlfriend. This was a surprise for both of them because nobody knew he had a girlfriend. Christina thought, "Hey, how good for him. I hope he's changed." But then the friend let out the whole gossip. It seems that at some point, the guy went completely crazy and assaulted the girl. She began yelling at him, threatening her, and even hit her a couple of times. At that moment, Christina remembers the knives and fears for the other girl's life. They never knew who that other girl was. The information didn't go that far, unfortunately. But Christina, the only thing she was thinking about was the knives and that she hoped that the other girl was really okay. Her friend said to her, "It's a good thing you didn't continue with him. That guy was crazy." And yes, indeed, Christina understood that she had been saved from possibly even death.